Hello, and thank you for joining me today for a few thoughts from the Bible. On Sunday this last weekend, I enjoyed a great message from my church here in Uganda about the time when Jesus walked on the water. It's a pretty well-known story in the Bible, but I find that every time I hear it, every time I read it, I just see something new in it. So I wanted to share something that I noticed this time as I heard that passage in the Bible. So Jesus, he tells his disciples to get into their boat and to go on ahead of him to the other side of the lake. So off they go, but as they're making their way merrily across the water, the wind starts to pick up and waves start crashing around them in their boat. And then, as if that's not bad enough, the disciples look out over the water and they see somebody walking towards them. The account of this passage in the book of Matthew in the Bible tells us that they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. Now, as we know, that ghostly apparition was actually Jesus walking on the water towards them. And he tells his followers to take courage and lets them know who it is who is with them. This is Peter's response in Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 to 31. "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" There's just so much that we can get out of this story, but I want to pick up on one particular element of it today, and it's Jesus telling Peter that he had little faith. Now, wait just a moment here, Jesus, just a second. This man, Peter, he was a fisherman. He had spent most of his life on or around the water. He knew very, very well that it was a physical impossibility for a man to walk on the surface of water as if it was solid ground. And yet, even with all of that knowledge, he was still willing to clamber out of this boat, rocking crazily as it was, buffeted by the wind and the waves. This man of little faith, in the middle of a storm, started to walk on water towards Jesus. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but that doesn't sound like little faith. That sounds like great big faith to me. I mean, can you imagine yourself, really picture yourself stepping out of the safety of the boat to step onto the water, believing that you can walk on it? That is what Peter did. And I can just imagine the awesome wonder that he must have felt for those few moments. "I'm doing it, Jesus, look at me, I'm doing it." So I think that we all kind of have moments like that when we start following God's instructions. "I'm doing it, God. I'm talking to these people about you. I'm doing it. I'm starting this new business. I'm doing it. I'm moving to a new place, to a new job, into a new relationship. I'm doing it, Jesus. Look at me. I'm doing it." It is scary stepping out of the comfort and the safety of the boat, but there is excitement in that moment of trusting absolutely in God to meet our needs, to do the miraculous, to do the impossible, to help us to walk on the water. The problem, though, is when the doubt comes. It was still windy, it was still wavy when Peter stepped out onto that water, and maybe a wave crashed in front of him for an instant. Maybe in that moment he just couldn't quite see Jesus through the wind, through the waves, and suddenly he started to fear. Suddenly he started to say, wait just a minute, what am I doing here? This is impossible. This thing that I'm doing, it cannot be done. And we can have those moments in our lives as well, I think. I'm trying to tell these people about you, God, but they're just laughing at me. This seems impossible. I've started this new business and I really felt like that was what you were telling me to do, God, but now I don't have any customers and I'm worried about how I'm going to make ends meet, where I'm going to get money from. I've moved to this new place, but now it's really hard and I don't know anyone and I don't understand why you've called me here, God. Doubt. Doubt deactivates our faith. It makes us look at the storm around us, at the circumstances that don't seem to be quite in our favor, at the problems that seem insurmountable, at the waves that threaten to drown us. Doubt makes us think logically about the situations we find ourselves in and say, this thing that I'm doing right here, it is simply not possible. I need to get myself out of it. Doubt deactivates our faith because it makes us see the difficulties that appear to be greater in that moment than the power of God. And I don't think that Jesus was telling Peter here like, oh, sorry, Peter, you have like dropped down a few levels of faith here. You know, you're going to have to work pretty hard to climb back up to being a man of faith. Sorry about that. To me, it was more that in that moment of doubt, Peter's faith just turned off. It deactivated. His belief in God didn't vanish. He still believed that Jesus was the Messiah. He had just walked on water, for crying out loud. He knew who Jesus was. But doubt pushed that knowledge off to one side and told him that he could not count on it, that he could not count on God. And it nullified his faith in that moment. It deactivated his faith. So all of us face doubt in our lives. If you have never faced doubt, you will at some point, I assure you. It is part of the human condition. And thankfully, we have the answer to doubt here in this passage as well. See, when you have that moment of doubt, when you have that moment where you are questioning if God is big enough to handle your situation, don't turn away from him. Instead, call out, Lord, save me. Lord, help me overcome my unbelief. Lord, show me who you are again. See, when we do that, he will reach out a hand to us and he will do the miraculous for us again. He will pull us back up onto the surface of the water, walking with us to where we need to go. See, if doubt deactivates our faith, then looking to Jesus reactivates it. Peter, he went on to do amazing things for the glory of God. He hadn't lost his faith in that instant. He just needed to reactivate it by turning his gaze onto Jesus again. And we can do exactly the same thing in our own lives. Thank you so much for joining me for this thought from the Bible today. I hope that that's been an encouragement to you, especially if you find yourself in a place of doubt right now. I'm recording new videos every Monday and every Friday, so I will see you on Monday for the next one. See you then.